Out. Folks, please stand up. Join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone. This is the April 9th. Gosh, it's April 9th, meeting of the Town of Canandaigua Planning Board. You need an agenda. They were out on the table. If you hopefully you signed in, so we keep a record of who was here. Our secretary. Some new faces here. Let me introduce you to the board and the group up front. Karine Hatch is our recording secretary. Kim Burkhardt is our remote access facilitator. See, Kim, you missed a meeting. I forget who you are. We're small but mighty as far as our board tonight. We have two members that are excused, Mark Tolbert and Scott Neal. Scott's coming back from a conference in Saratoga Springs, planning board conference. Then we have Tim Schneider, our alderman, who's stepping up into the big voice chair. We got Amanda Van Laken, planning board member, Bob LaCourse, vice chairman of the planning board, myself, Chuck Euler, chairman, Kristen Smith, our zoning officer, Lance Brabant, representing the MRB, our engineering firm, and Chris Adler, who is our attorney. So we're going to follow the agenda. It's fortunately a brief agenda, so we should be able to get everybody in and out of here quickly. Please note there are two exits should we have to leave the room in case of emergency. So that has been pointed out. We had one legal notice for the two public hearings we're conducting tonight. That was published in the Daily Messenger on April 4th. And with that, we'll move on to privilege of the floor. Is someone here that would like to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda?
For Popeyes?
Popeyes is on the agenda, so.
Yeah, I'm here for them.
Okay, so we'll get to you in just a second. Anybody else? Privilege of the floor? Okay, we will now move on to our first public hearing, which has to do with Popeyes. It's Liberty Restaurant Holdings on property 3225 State Route 364. Applicant is present to a special use permit for 3 commercial speech signs in the CC zoning district for Popeyes restaurant. Someone here representing Popeyes? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Brett Steenberg. I'm the engineer for Popeyes and was involved with the approval process back in 2022 when we did the site plan approval. We did it on October, I think 18th, 2022. Receive a variance for an additional speech sign on the building for 3 signs from the Zoning Board of Appeals. At that point, we thought we were done. We weren't aware of having to get a special use permit in addition to all of that for the speech signs. So I'm sure you're well aware, the building is constructed. It's on the site, has no signage on it right now. Because when they went to put up the signs, they're like, you don't have a permit for this. And we scrambled around to try to figure out what was going on with that and why. So they filed a permit for the special use permit, and really that's all we're here for tonight is a special use permit for those 3 signs. We did eliminate a lot of signage through the variance process on the building, and I can show you. I've boards of that showing what we would typically do for Popeyes, but just to get those 3 speech signs. Actually, one isn't a speech sign, one's a chicken, and the other 2 are speech signs. So if there's any questions, we're just trying to straighten out and make sure everything's right. And the applicant is at this point in a position where they need to get the restaurant open as soon as possible. So we appreciate you meeting this evening and helping us out.
Okay, thanks for coming out. I understand you made a 5-hour drive to get.
Oh, it's a 3.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm in
fast.
the Albany area, so
Okay.
it's only 3 up here and 3 back. But
Well, thanks for joining us.
So it's not as bad as going out to Dunkirk for the Popeyes approval.
Okay. We can stop at this Popeyes and pick up dinner.
Exactly.
All right, so you're here for an SUP, special use permit. There were a lot of different applicants' names. There was Whitewaters, there was Liberty restaurants, are we issuing it to the correct entity?
It would be Liberty Restaurants you'd be issuing
Okay,
it
and
to.
that's what we have on our resolution. Though I think Whitewater was involved because they're shopping.
It's their plaza, that's right.
For the record, it lasts whoever owns the property or operates the restaurant. The permit, especially use permit runs with the land and. It's good no matter who's operating.
Okay. So Popeyes moved out and somebody else,
Different,
Came in.
they probably couldn't use,
they wouldn't use the
Popeye
Popeye
signs.
signs. Okay,
it's good for the sign, I guess, not for the user.
use. Okay. Um. So it's just 3 building mounted signs. I think the resolutions we have in front of us tonight reflect,
Yeah.
in addition to two-sided directional signs, and that's not part of what we're discussing
that's-
tonight.
That's not part, because the two-sided directional signs that they're proposing exceed the square footage, so they have a separate application in for a variance on that at this point. And we're gonna see where that goes and if we can get a variance.
They're just directional signs,
They're just directional signs.
so they're not commercial speech.
No, they're just, drive through, enter, exit. But I believe the code requires or allows a maximum of 2 square foot. And and we're exceeding that amount.
But those shouldn't require a special use permit
Okay,
for the board's edification.
Mhm. Okay, the county planning board had no comments on this. New York Department of Transportation had no comments since it was not in the right of way. We got no comments from Hopewell. You are asking a waiver from a professionally prepared site plan. And I guess we were discussing before the meeting whether a site plan.
My understanding is that site plan approval was granted by this board in 2022. And so that
Carries the load.
Lance is gonna add a whereas paragraph to your special use permit resolution.
Correct. I think there would be 2 whereas. One would reflect the correct variance approval date, which was 9/2022. And it would also have a whereas the site plan was approved previously at the September 28th, 2022 plan.
Any board comments on this?
No.
So you got your variance, you got your building permit, so you got that within the year. So you're all square there, so the variance still carries. And now you need special use permits for the sweet signs. Okay. Anybody from the public, sir, would you like to?
no, I think he's
He's with you?
with us. So
Okay.
I just didn't recognize. Came in,
I
so
did
we
not
had-
know if I could put the sign off.
You got them sitting inside the foyer down.
No,
Well, assuming you get a positive response tonight, you can go and talk to our code enforcement people. All right, so is there anyone else? In digital land? Nope, if not, any further questions here?
I just one question. In the cloud, I saw 2 different site plans. That superseded, I just want to make sure we're talking the same site plan that we approved. And what is the next one up? That one. What is that? One plan showed a drive-through. Your parking lot had 2 in and out. But originally we signed one that didn't have any out, just one in. So I saw another plan that showed them both. So I just want to make sure we're talking about the right one.
Is that the directional signs?
No, it was on the parking layout.
I think the backup would said see you or.
Keep scrolling down, be the
Yeah,
next-
that one right there,
next.
look,
That's the existing conditions plan. That was when the bank was still there.
got you.
So if you go down further to the next plan, you'll see, actually, that's the demolition plan. The next plan would be the site plan, which would be the plan that you approved, which would have, there you go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
I was confused.
And then, so there's signs that are there but are being removed? Is it? Yeah, red X's on your elevations.
On the elevations, yeah, if you, they're not there, they were just part of the original. These ones you see with the red X's, those were ones that were part of the original application package, back in 2022, that we eliminated through the variance process.
Got it.
So there are no signs there now that are being removed.
Okay. Further questions? If not, we've got I'll close the hearing. And we'll go on to action on the type 2 seeker. If you want to roll that in with, we're just doing a SUP.
Correct, with those changes.
Those changes.
The two whereas being added.
Okay.
So no single stage site plan, just
Correct.
seeker 2 and special use. And I guess since I'm talking still, I'll make a motion for CPN 24007, the seeker type 2 resolution and the special use permit at 3225 State Route 364. I don't believe reach modified conditions, but Lance did add 2 whereases. Okay. With in the special use permit, the 5 conditions that look to be our standard special use permit conditions.
And you change the whereas from two-sided.
Yes, I struck from the project description, it no longer includes the two-sided directional signs.
I'll second that.
Motion is second, anything, this thing about the variances, whereas the requested area variances granted by the ZBA at March 19.
Correct, that's the one
Okay.
whereas that we're changing, will be reflected on. the
Yeah.
plan.
Back to October. You didn't go to ZBA last month, did you?
No,
No, okay.
It was September 20th, 2022.
Okay.
was it September or October?
It was October, yeah, it was October.
I have the resolution in my hand, I think it was from October.
After the planning board granted approval.
It was after the planning board granted approval,
Okay.
I have it here as
October 18th.
public hearing opened October 18th, 2022, closed. Yeah,
October 18th, 2022.
For a
Yeah.
third building mounted condition. Building company. Okay. And like you said, if and when you ever want to do anything with the directional signs, just.
yeah, they're working on that now, so we want to get the restaurant open.
Okay, I think we got the verbiage right. Further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you very much for your time this
Thank
evening
you.
and getting us on the agenda.
If I may just add my standard spiel about this, the town does not require permits for signage, special use permits for signage. But all permits, sign permits need to be referred to the county planning board,
Okay,
which, because it's a commercial route on Route 332 and 5 and 20 automatically denies, they have a standard policy to automatically deny.
okay,
According to New York state law, the only way to override that denial is with a vote of 4 planning board members. So the town instituted this special use permit as a mechanism to allow you to put signs up on 5 and 20 and.
I appreciate the explanation of that, because for the longest time, I've been trying to figure out why because typically a variance would supersede a special use permit
It's all, it's
for a town approval, so.
15 years ago, the town decided we don't want to be in or the town planning board decided we don't want to be involved in signage. That's really just a permit that should be issued, got a bunch of rules, you need this dimensions, except on Route 332. After a year, we realized nobody was allowed to put signs up on Route 332 or 5 and 20. And maybe they'd like to do that, so that's why you're stuck here. It's inconvenient, but otherwise you have 0 signs.
I appreciate the explanation, because when the applicant called me, I'm like, I honestly, why we got this, and so we went back and forth and just got in the process, but hopefully I'm sure you'll be going to code enforcement department, hopefully getting those signs up as soon as possible, and you'll have chicken sandwiches next week.
I got the sign truck there.
I saw the side truck parked out in front when I drove by.
He needs a permit
Thank-
from the
You have
town,
building application.
but he needs to get the permit before you can install the signs.
Sorry?
You need to get the permit from the town,
Oh,
like a piece of paper from the town tomorrow,
okay.
before you can install the sign.
Is there a time that I can come get it or?
Anytime between like 8 and 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't want.
Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, safe
My
travels.
wife at Coho, she's got pizza for us. Oh, no, we already did that, because my son found out he needed soccer cleats, he's playing in a soccer tournament in college this weekend. He blew out his cleats and Dick sent him 2 different types of cleats.
Thank you.
So, good luck.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next hearing is Amy Flint. Has a yet to be determined property on Thomas Road. Requesting amendment to the subdivision approval conditions for CPN 23-066. This is the Pinnacle.
It is, but I'm not doing this one.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Anthony, this is Brennan Marks, Engineering. We provided an application in for, just an amendment on this, approval that was made in August of 2023. Basically, there's a condition of approval that requires post-construction stormwater management, which would require us to install a stormwater retention pond at each of the 6 lots that are approximately an acre in size, which essentially deems them unbuildable. We went to the DEC regarding this, for clarification on this, or Luke's Canal provided us a email that I sent to the town, basically saying it's not the state's requirement for post-construction stormwater management on these lots. It is, that would just be a town standard they're enforcing here, and essentially creates the lots not buildable. So we're asking that the planning board remove the condition. I believe it's number 4. Lance, correct me on that one. It stating that the post-construction stormwater management is required for the 6 lots 1 through 6.
So
Yeah, why don't you
just to
explain
give
the
a quick
position?
summarization, so what? During the time of the original application that came before you, there were 7 proposed residential lots. 6 smaller ones, 1 large remaining lot. At the same time, there was also a subdivision application that superseded and may have came after, I don't recall, but it was all relatively close. The commercial lots just on the southern portion of this project as well. Those came in as a separate application, they were approved separately. And during that, there was also a large concept plan for the remaining lots behind airport area that was kind of going through a what if review with the town. So when we looked at this, MRB looked at this, we looked at it, the whole common plan of larger development, which is a requirement for DC to look at. We did do that, and we made the suggestion to the town at that time that we consider requiring a note to be added that said, if upon receiving a site plan application, that a drainage plan be considered for this in terms of dealing with the full component, the full build out. The reason for that is that with the 6 lots and the 7 lots, it's likely you're going to disturb more than 5 acres of residential development. As Brennan mentioned, they did respond back up. They did request a clarification from DEC. DEC did come back and say, yeah, with the 6 lots, you're under that threshold, which we totally agree with. It's really that lot 7 where that trigger would come in. I don't believe there's any intention at this time to build on lot 7. So therefore, I don't have any issue with the town moving forward with amending the approval with one caveat that I do believe lot 7 still has to have a note that says upon any site plan application to the town, a full-blown SWIP and stormwater compliance, meaning all the DC requirements, a very similar comment, but a very similar condition, but instead of on the 6 lots, it would just be on lot 7. That would be my suggestion. Because otherwise, what could happen, I'm sorry, Brennan, what we're trying to prevent is, what ultimately can happen is you get subdivisions upon subdivisions upon subdivisions. And each one of them are less than 5 acres at the time of submission. Well, that means they don't ever have to deal with stormwater, and that, I know that's not the intention here by either of the previous applicants and the new applicant. That's not the intention, but I think in order to protect the town, we carry that note for lot 7, so that any future development there is some stormwater mitigation plan that's being provided.
Only thing I gotta caution you on that, Lance, is if someone bought lot 7 and put up a single house and the total disturbance was less than 5 acres still. Which we do have room, I think we're at 3.5 acres disturbance, then you're forcing that one house to put a retention pond, and you might be, you might just remove the note altogether, because anything that happens on lot 7 is gonna have to come back through planning board review process.
Right, but if 5 years from now or 3 years from now, we forget that this project ever happened and they have, 1.2 acres of disturbance. Technically, they're under the threshold at that time, but in totality, they're over. So I think to prevent that what if scenario, which I get where you're coming from, and I think that's, maybe there's a way to word the condition that gives us some wiggle room on that we can verify total disturbance of the 6 previous approved lots and whatever that site plan application is for lot 7. If it's deemed at the time to be less, then maybe that's the way the condition gets worded, but I find it difficult to word such a condition.
Well, you've got, Brennan makes a very good point. It'll have to come back to the planning board at that time anyway, so, the applicant can say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense anymore, and planning board can deal with it as is appropriate at that time, rather than trying to word a condition. For
Right, but if we don't add that note
No, leave the note.
Right.
For lot 7, and if it's inappropriate
at the time.
5 years from now.
Right,
It'll be
Right.
fine.
That'll be tomorrow.
And
Yeah.
you could also.
I'm fine with that.
Ask for an opinion from DEC at that time.
Yeah, I mean, if a single family residential lot came before you and we can make the determination, I don't think there would be an argument there. It's really to try to prevent the larger project from coming in and not having to do anything. So to back up, the request that's being made is to amend the previous approval, remove condition 4 or change condition 4 is what I'm suggesting. That instead of being on all lots, it just be directly really for lot 7. So I know the version that you have before you does not show that, so listen, that's what I'm,
Amended condition.
yeah, so it would be amended the condition to say lot 7.
Okay. So the original subdivision, the 7-lot subdivision, never got signed. Or did it? I thought I signed it. Yeah.
I think it's
it had my
signed
name
in
on it, yeah.
contract.
So it never got recorded.
Never got filed.
Okay.
Well, at which point it's no longer, 1/24/24. So it's planning board chair 1/24/24. If it's not recorded, it's invalid.
I think it was recorded.
I don't remember. I don't see.
So if it is recorded, there's 7 lots.
Correct.
And your problem, Brennan, is the financing for the 6 lots with that condition. But that condition was applied to
No,
get the
it's-
plan
they're-
signed.
No.
The lots are being sold, the 6 lots are being sold to
Right,
Pinnacle Homes.
right.
And then the Pinnacle Homes is gonna build on them. Just the 6 lots.
Yep. I'm just saying that we're amending a condition of the subdivision approval for a subdivision that was signed and recorded.
I don't think it was filed yet. I understand it wasn't filed. My understanding. Anthony may know different, but we had the signed one from Chuck. And I Ron, owner of Pinnacle Homes, brought up the concern. I reviewed it with him. And we kind of put the brakes on at that point. So don't file that. Let's go back, talk to the town, and this is where we're at right now. So
Yeah, no, that was the right thing to do, but procedurally, I don't know that you have. A existing subdivision plan right now. Because it was signed on January 24th, 60 days has expired. At which point the signed plat is no longer valid, which means you don't have any subdivision approvals.
So you have to.
It's not a big problem,
We didn't even sign,
you need a re-sign.
but we need to put the note.
yeah, we'll have to re-sign the plans. But we gotta amend the approval before we can submit a new set of plans for signature.
Can't, listen, you can't amend an approval that no longer exists. So your plans got signed and then they became invalid, which means they no longer exist. It's always rectified by planning board re-signing, planning board chair re-signing,
So what is,
but it's kind of a workaround.
You're right, that needs to have kind of a new plat for the subdivision, with the new condition on it. The no revision box and then it's get signed off on.
Yeah.
so basically, we're
You're
gonna
comfortable
alert
with that?
sketch plan review.
No, I don't want that, having them go over through the whole reapplication process for something that just, yeah, makes sense to just do it.
Well, not to confuse it more, but Brennan, on lot 6, was it, or 5, I guess you wanted to move the lot line? And you were gonna do that as a lot line adjustment after the property was purchased and recorded?
Yeah, that was a discussion we had, Chuck. You know, the best way to go about that was file the map and then we can adjust that line between lots 3 and 4.
Okay, so we just gotta figure how. Well,
I think that's
Well,
gonna.
I mean,
Alright.
Chris, site plan amendments happen all the time, right?
Sure.
And they go back through the planning board for an amendment process. I mean, I think you guys did a lot with Morels and amendments to the site plans too, right? Or Fox Ridge. I don't see how it'd be any different than that.
For the reasons I just stated. That being said, I don't think we should hold anything up here.
Okay, thanks. I misunderstood you. I'm sorry.
okay, so what do we need document wise for the plan? How does the board feel about changing? I mean, I think Lance certainly explained the reasoning and how we could address it in the future. It's just a matter of how do we get it, pen to paper.
Do we call it an amended, I'm sorry, Chuck,
That's right, no. I'm open to suggestions.
is this considered an amended approval then, Chris? That's how we were wording it.
Yep.
An amended approval, or
Refined.
is it just a revised condition of the original?
Let's do an amended, no, it's an amended approval, that sort of starts slow.
Amended
Yeah, it's
approval.
Yeah, do it as an amended approval.
You're removing a condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically
Or
remove it and then
modify,
we
yeah.
modify.
It'll be a new number 4.
Yeah, I can make it number 4.
Well, I
currently
mean,
have it number 7.
That's-
So again, the board
that's
is
what-
comfortable
Oh,
with that.
did a lot of this.
While we're deliberating the language, anybody in the public like to address the board regarding this application? Anybody have suggestions? No. Okay, I have heard nothing from the public, so we are,
Chuck,
excuse me.
for my benefit, can you just walk me through exactly what we're doing? Again,
So the planning board granted subdivision approval. Sometime
August
late last year.
22nd,
but the
2023.
60 days. 60 days has expired.
Yeah, well, no, so the applicant then met all the conditions of approval. At which point they submitted the subdivision plat for signature by the planning board chair.
Okay.
There's a New York state law that says within 62 days of the planning board signature, planning board chair signature, you have to record it at the Ontario County Clerk's Office. That prevents a bunch of signed but unrecorded subdivision plats from floating around out there. Sure. So you get 62 days. Now, for whatever reasons, after the planning board, the reason is usually after the planning board chair signs it, you have to then get Department of Health, State Department of Health signatures, which sometimes takes a little bit longer than that. At which point you bring it back in, give it to Kristen has Chuck come in, Chuck just signs over the original signature and secondly, Brennan would come pick it up, take it and get it reported. That hasn't happened here, so the plat that Chuck signed in January is expired. It's kind of making it invalid, but there's not a clear law on that, not clear enough to make them go through the three-ring circus of reapplying. So what we're doing is amending the original approval, modify the condition,
And then Chuck will resign.
at which point Chuck will resign.
Okay.
And they'll start the same way.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a resolution for our amended subdivision, and we just need a condition to remove a condition.
So what I did is I removed the current condition number 4 and I created a new condition number 7. Condition number 7 is the same condition number that was number 4. However, now it reads, a notice to be added. It's basically the same thing, but it says a notice to be added as 1 or more acres of land will be disturbed during the development of all 7 lots associated with this subdivision as part of larger common plan of development and sale. For the site plan application for lot 7. Lot 7 shall be required to obtain coverage under the Speedy's general permit for stormwater discharges for construction activities, general permit,
When we say development, not site plan.
site development.
You hear that, Brennan?
Application.
Yep, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Pinnacle that'll get them their money.
And he's site development. He's the other components.
Get their loan or get their insurance or whatever was the hangup.
Yeah, Ron's not talking about it. Yeah, it'll get them started and moving on these houses. That's for
Okay.
sure.
All right, so did everyone on the board understand what we're voting on here?
Yes.
Okay, someone want to make a motion?
I'll make that a motion to amend condition number 4 into condition number 7. I don't have the CPN in front of me. 2431. Yeah. On Thomas Road.
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion? If not? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're good.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the new site plans. So we have a sketch plan in front of us tonight, folks. And I guess I had to preface this by just saying that we'll treat this as a sketch plan. We are being asked to provide like an advisory report to the town board regarding an application that the Janeco family has made to apply a PUD to property they own off of Purdy Road between Purdy and Town Line. And Anthony is the engineer, and we'll certainly discuss it some this evening. I talked to the chairman of the town board. I said we have 2 members missing tonight. I said I'd like to carry this over as far as our sketch plan discussion to May, and he said that's no problem. So we'll go through your presentation.
Yeah, I'll go through a quick
Presentation
review.
tonight and tell us what the Janecos have in mind.
So currently the property sits on the west side of 332 in that 332 corridor between Town Line Road and Purdy. There is gonna be a main road that will connect Purdy Road and Town Line Road. That line is gonna follow the current water line that's being installed right now, or it's gonna parallel that line. So the project consists of approximately 17 single-family residents. They're smaller size lots, more of like a patio type home, similar to what you're seeing across from like the hospital right now that they're building. So they're so smaller, single-family lots. And then as you go south, those are gonna come off the Town Line Road. As you travel south, that's gonna open into like 6-unit and 8-unit townhome units. There's approximately 14 8-units and 15 6-unit buildings, so approximately 220 units all total. Total property is about 66 acres. With the PUD process, there's a minimum of 100 acres. We will be requesting a waiver for that. Some of the things that are involved in that is open space and conservation of lands. Typically you need 20%, that'd be 20 acres. We're 66 acres, so our 20% isn't 20, but we're gonna hold that 20 anyway. On the southwest side, there is a large wetland that was delineated by MRB back when the water line was first started to be talked about. So it'll be mostly residential. Along 332, there are 3 commercial lots that will have a shared access instead of having 3 individual driveway cuts coming off of 332 to kind of keep traffic centralized. A couple different retention ponds. There is a retention pond on the southeast side that Stella's uses that we will probably expand upon. Some of it will be used for the road, some of it will be used for just the complex in itself. There are a couple of green areas that are, postmarked for having little park areas. And then there will be a community center right in this general vicinity as planned right now with parking, handicap parking for access. So that's a general scope of the project. And you can see the green areas are the areas that we are keeping open space. So we do have a large buffer between Stablegate and what's there now. And then also that blue area that you see is the conservation easement that was part of the Stablegate subdivision. So you'll see that most of the homes that are in that area of this side are more concentrated over in this area. So there is quite a bit of space between the development that's proposed and what's currently there for Stablegate. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anthony, are they for sale or rentals?
Rentals, and then the single families are, the townhomes will be for rentals, and they're still discussing if they're gonna be the single families or for sale rentals. But the townhomes will be rentals 100%.
You'll see sort of below the big retention pond on the left side of it, there's a community center, which usually means leasing office and fitness club.
Correct.
Gotta ask the question.
So you mentioned 220 units, is that total?
So 220 individual units, so it divides into the 17 single family
17.
separate, and then the other ones were within the 6 and 8 unit buildings.
203 multifamily
Yep.
units.
Correct.
And the single family homes are also gonna be rental units?
That is still in discussion with the developer right now to either sell them or retain them.
What's the size of those lots?
They're about 5,500 square feet, 50 by 90.
54.
Yeah, 50 by 90. Like I said, they're very close in size to what's going on across from there. We're just trying to keep, have a decent sized building that we can have there and not expand into the open space that we want to create. We can adjust those if the town,
One thing I had multiple comments, but one thing is the streets don't look to be our complete streets. No sidewalks, there's no sidewalks in there at all. That's, would be something, you mentioned green spaces for rec areas, but it'd be great, if this development could actually build something. A playground, pickleball courts, things like that.
Okay, yeah, we can take a look at that.
So there's nothing there, nothing up there. All these people are gonna either stay there, do nothing, or move out someplace else. It'd be great if I lived there.
A little spot, okay.
A spot to, I just got off the pickleball court.
Okay.
Those things are fun.
Yeah, we can take a look at that, absolutely.
I know the Auburn Trail was up there someplace. Is that right, Kristen? We don't know exactly where it's gonna go. Could it go through there somehow?
The original, I think the town had the original is the water line and a trail easement, so definitely can put a main sidewalk on there. It's probably, we were planning on it, we didn't show it on this, but I believe it's, a requirement.
Yeah, that might be the sidewalk.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you were absolutely right. It goes,
There was a 70-foot easement for, I think it was for trails and the water line originally, and I'm not really sure how it went, but I think that was exactly where that road is. And I think it was close to that alignment.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was the same thing.
right there close.
Yeah, we can definitely.
Because the original, that's Anthony, the original plan was for the trail not there, to go through this little.
Yeah, a little,
And hook up
Right.
like that.
but with the wetlands.
But
We moved it outside.
then they said we can't do it, and Janeco, actually, as I recall, he had had this whole thing with this as the access.
Yeah.
But that didn't work for the town's water line. And so we purchased this. So the town can run its water line through there.
Yeah, the town's currently doing that now. Part of it is also the updating Mobile Road to be fire apparatus compliant. So that'll also be done now. And that was part of the subdivision approval
Yeah.
that you recently saw last year, those 2 extra lots, in order to develop those.
Mhm.
That's these two.
Yeah, that road there. And we've been working with MRB to get that connection where they wanted it, so.
I don't know, there are existing houses there.
No, those are 2 existing lots that were approved last year, but the condition of site plan approval was bringing Mobile Road up to fire apparatus compliance.
And I think you went so far as to say, consider dedicating. No, at some point.
I think that's probably gonna,
Yeah.
make sense.
'Cause
Cause
I think-
it'll be your 26 feet wide, all the, the standards. We
If
might
you
try to
need
get
to
away
say-
from gutters there since it's existing. but we'll-
Unless Janeco wants to maintain it.
One last thing, Anthony, I'm
Yep.
sorry. You have post office boxes, I think, is that what those small boxes are down there? Those small
No,
squares,
those are just, those are parking areas. It's just
Oh,
such a
parking
large, those are parking, those things are parking and then, depending on how those all work and the final design, they'll be. Dedicated spaces for now and things.
so
of that
they're
nature.
just extras.
Yeah, those are just extra, parking.
Gotcha, I thought they were mailboxes, like,
And each unit has, these are like a townhome unit that has their own garage and things, so like. The way that they're designed is the flanking end units will be single story, and then the middle ones will be more of a 2-story building. And then everybody
Okay.
gets their own garage and driveway.
are you proposing any kind of fencing between the commercial and the residential at all?
Not at this time, we can look at that.
Is there an example of development already constructed that could give me a better visual in the town as far as density is concerned and size?
Similar to, I would say probably, do you know where American Equipment is? There's that townhome complex that just went up the last couple of years right across 332 on the west side, right south of the, similar to that.
Okay.
So everybody, like I said, everybody gets their own, there's similar 50, 60 feet between buildings in the backyard, kind of give the outdoor space.
No,
but
just on
similar.
the other side of the downline, there's also rentals, like behind the care lot.
Yeah, those are more, I think those are more like
Is that
larger
density?
units
They're
without,
larger units.
those are large units without garages, I believe. They're more of
Right.
like apartment buildings type
They're
thing.
apartments,
I
yeah.
think so, yeah.
I just was curious if the density is similar.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit, I think it's a higher density there because the buildings are fit more.
Your sewer's coming in from the north?
The sewer's gonna go from the south going north.
Oh, there is sewer.
Yeah, there's there's sewer on the north,
North,
we gotta bring it in.
that's what I mean, it's coming in.
So
from
and
the
we have
north.
about, I think there's like 18 feet of fall across the whole project, so we've been looking at that, and then I know MRB is looking at it too, so there is.
Let me interrupt you, Anthony, just to give a little bit of background from the town's perspective, and I've worked with Doug Finch, the town manager. I know Jared Simpson, MRB, and Jim Fletcher on this. 5 years ago, maybe. Mr. Janeco, who owns all this stuff, said, yeah, sure, you can use my property to put this water main in that you desperately need. As part of the Canandaigua Farmington water improvement project. That's gonna bring the water pressures up to standard, I think. And along with it, he said, why don't you build me a road when you build that? And I'll put, I don't remember the number, it's actually posted online under projects. The Janeco's proposal was like something like 70 townhouse units, maybe?
I think it was like 250 units total.
No. It was like almost no, it was like very few units. The town would love this road. But the town has other priorities. We can't make a special district to finance the road. There's other roads that need to be built before this one essentially. But our planning says, yes, the town should have a road here. Hopefully we can get one at some point. And so the idea was, why don't we increase the density that the Janecos can have through a planned unit development application? to make it financially feasible for the Genecos to build the road themselves. It benefits the Genecos as property owners and the town who wants this road and the water. It doesn't mean we need to approve it, I'm not saying that. But this is from our discussions today, something that could be a real win-win for both parties. And that's sort of your question about density made me think of that.
Yeah, I'm
This
just
is higher
thinking about
density.
the area, consistent character, community,
Yeah,
and I mean. So essentially, or what you're saying is that it would be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
it would be very consistent with the comprehensive plan, especially when you look at our zoning map, which was derived from an iteration of the comprehensive plan, which has this covered as mixed use overlay district.
Correct. It's in the MU02.
Yeah, so this is, and our comprehensive plan has always said, please have the higher density, we want housing.
Down there.
Just put it up at the north end of town around 332. Stop putting it down in the southern half of the lake. Or the southern half of the town, please just put it up here, this is where we want this kind of thing.
Well, it's that whole area, even across into farming.
Yeah,
Yeah, that area from Town Line Road up to.
Yeah, and like I said,
96 is all kind of that, you know.
I
going
see
down
I see consistency from one side of town line road to the other.
but that's just the sort of the background of how we got here. It's not just a developer looking to cram as many units as possible on a parcel, there's a reason for the number of units, and I think this is.
And just to add
Appropriate.
to, you said consistency, and I think that is kind of the thread that I want to tie on to. So I like the project, I like, the additional housing. I think consistency is coming to mind for landscaping and then kind of like the character of the neighborhood, because there's a lot of things going on around that place, but I would just propose or recommend, from a landscape plan, kind of ensuring the consistency throughout, so it's kind of making a cohesive.
Right, flows, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
no,
And-
yeah, and that's one of the things we do have, like. Bringing that other road in to get some more units, but also creating that buffer
Right.
strip along there for behind the houses, that's
Right.
about a 70-foot wide area there, so, that could be plantings and things of that nature, to kind of like, so you're not just. House. kind of thing,
Exactly,
so kind of breaks it
exactly,
up.
yeah.
And it does give us the ability for people on Purdy Road to get to a light, that's one of the other things, it's like, instead of. Making that left on 332 coming out of Purdy
Mhm.
Road, you have the ability to kind of cut through there and.
Yeah.
Get to a light where it's safer to take that left.
Yeah.
So that brings, this,
That'll bring traffic.
this is a town road.
Yes.
This will become a dedicated town
Correct.
road. And everything else is gonna be private.
As of right now, that's how
Pretty much.
I understand, yeah, and then there is the ability to do, Jack was on that little, there's that little. Kind of secondary access off of Purdy, it
Yeah,
might be a private, extension at some point, We don't need it like for fire apparatus or anything like that, but we do have the opportunity to maybe put that stuff in. Just to give some people a little bit easier to get into their, that little community area.
like a driveway. So.
Yeah, like just a little access, 26-foot wide access. So cars can pass in between, but the main access and the main dedicated road will be. Through that, parallel with the current water line that's going on, so if you did drive by, you kind of would be able to see where they're putting it in.
So again, as sort of background while you're thinking about all this, in our planned unit development code. This concept plan discussion is required after, the applicant presented it, not necessarily orally, but if it was presented to the town board. And they said, yeah, we'll consider this, is something, sounds like we should consider. It goes to the planning board. The applicant hasn't even made an application yet. So this is very preliminary, and the stuff that you guys are talking about is what really needs to come out right now, so.
Yeah.
Anthony can go back and somebody stamp a bunch of, trees on here. make this pretty, these are the things that we want, but there's a lot more refinement
Oh, yes.
here.
The design itself still be done. This is, I think it's after this, it goes to town board to actually apply the rezoning of the PUD, and then we can officially.
Yeah, it's gonna bounce back
Yeah.
and forth between you and the
Yeah.
town board for the next several months.
We have to send a, do we have to send a recommendation to the board?
It says that you have to provide a recommendation,
That's what I thought.
and then once you have made a recommendation, then the applicant can make its formal application to the town board for rezoning. I'm pretty sure that if you recommended, this is the worst thing ever, don't, whatever you do, don't do this. They still progress to the next step. But I mean, this is it's really
Pay your money and take your chances. Well, and again, as part of that step where we're reviewing the sketch plan, I think it's our charge to also look at, make sure the comp plan is compliant with the comp plan and, you know, looking at, from my view of it, it looks pretty much in compliance. You know, the transportation aspect of the comp plan endorses that Spine Road to go from Purdy up to Town Line, because that allows people to access that traffic signal up at Town Line, and that's one of the pluses of having that Spine Road installed. But you don't have to go out there at Stella's, and if you're making a left, it's taking your life in your hands. So, I mean, that's certainly the infrastructure, it is in a sanitary growth area. There's very few NRI features in this property.
Yeah, the only thing is the wetlands.
Well, it
This
was
has
Silver
been
Maple ash swamp
delineated.
down there.
Yeah.
What's
Uh,
that, Chuck?
There are very few NRI.
No, the silver maple.
Well, the Silver Maple ash swamp is shows down in that corner where the wetlands is.
Yep.
Do you have
So-
that identified, Anthony?
I have the wetlands identified that was provided by MRPAC's delineation back when they started the project. They sent that over digitally, so that's what you see in front of, that's what you see on the plan is what was delineated. So you have the large. You got the southwest corner, there's the large area, there's a couple little spots here, there's like a little
Mhm.
waterway that we kind of skipped over. And then it kind of comes parallel up the line, there's some, piece in there.
And your farmland it's prime if drained, so I assume it's a wet property, so
Yeah,
It's
it's,
never really been
scrubby brush, it's really, kind of
I think, yeah, it was sort of left to
just sit.
grow on its own, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not protected ag land, so that's something you got going in your favor. You have the sandalwood. Or, yeah. Sandalbrook, yeah, the development on the west there, that certainly will have to be cognizant of. Making sure that it's not affected in any way. There's no streams or ponds in the property. You're gonna create detention basins as part of it. It's not highly rated as having lands of conservation value in terms of our comp plan, so that's good. Parking. I'm a little concerned about the parking for visitors. I mean, you're not showing a lot, you have a couple spaces down there on that little road.
Yeah, I can add.
Well, I
parking. Is
think
there-
we've been looking for parking analysis, you know,
Okay.
formal parking analysis on commercial properties and on a multi-residential such as this, I think. You know, to justify the number of parking spaces you have on site and any needed off site. I think that would be helpful.
Like, is the driveway long enough for car park?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's it. Can it park one car, two cars?
Right.
To have a
And you-
garage? I mean, is the
Yeah.
garage used
Without
for a
impeding the
garage?
drive, the
Is the
sidewalk.
garage used for stuff? So that's, you know, something that I think we should look for.
I'm assuming those are one car driveways.
I believe they're 2-car driveways and it's like 2 garages next to each other, so it's like
No,
a shared
one.
driveway.
Lengthwise though, it's one. car.
Yeah, it's one length, yeah. It's a
Um,
little longer, it's like 25 feet.
Especially when you have a sidewalk.
Yeah.
If there's-
So each one of those is the joint driveway for each. For this
Oh, okay.
opposing driveway, so you'd have 2 cars in each one of those spaces.
Yeah.
Or That's mini storage, your non-residential.
Mini storage and then 3 commercial lots on the west side, so.
Okay, you have to watch your uses in the PUD. I'm not sure if mini storage is allowed.
It is.
Oh, it is? Okay.
I just kind of remembered, I remember looking it up.
Okay, just,
Light manufacturing / research and development, if you go to light manufacturing, it includes. Stuff that complies with mini storage.
oh,
Is my recollection, but we'll obviously confirm that. But yeah,
Mini storage is also in that, you know, the thought being it does benefit the people in that community.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly benefit from it, so.
is the- what you're.
We're still working on that, cleaning that up and what's, you know, it'll probably. change a
Yeah,
little
it's a little unclear how you.
Yeah.
Get to that.
Well, we wanna be able to, you're gonna come off of 332, there's gonna be that easement that comes through here. So there will be a main road that comes in, we're still cleaning this up, how they wanna put in the sizes of the units, so that is, can be cleaned up.
eventually we'll need numbers and.
Any full plan, yeah, designs.
No, I mean, I think the town board should have that before, like, how many
units?
units.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But on that, you're adding an access drive along Route 332.
Yeah.
Is there a reason you're putting it right at the edge of the lot line? as
To-
opposed to-
Because of the setbacks, we want it on the east side of it, because of the setback from 332 is so large for a building. And that road that's there now is just kind of like a crummy gravel road, so we want.
So I believe that the town board is willing to consider. When granting the PUD, and I want this, the reason I'm asking, that was my guess, but I'd like to get your feedback for the applicant. Is to consider more form-based code standards.
Okay.
To put that access drive, and this is what we talked about with Mr. Janeco and Sarah Janeco.
Mm-hmm.
If they've changed their mind, that's fine, but if you pull that access road back and put the buildings on 332.
Yeah, the reason that I put it along 332 is because of the 100 and.
The actual code.
The actual code
Right,
work.
we can write new
Okay,
code as
that's-
part of
yeah, we can
PUD.
definitely look.
Does that make sense here to, I mean, rather than
For
driving
me-
by an access road, drive by buildings fronting the road on Route 332. And then people can pull in off 332 and park behind buildings. It isn't in the form-based code district, but it's kind of close, which is why we sort of thought of that.
The only thing we have to consider is DOT is gonna have some regulations about how close you're gonna be to the building, even if it's on your property.
Still pretty far off.
It
right?
could be, but there's a distance and travel speed.
I mean, even 50 feet
Oh, okay.
would help not, I mean, because the right of way does kind of kick back there, maybe,
Right.
maybe from the travel lane, it's gotta be a
Yes,
distance
roads
from travel lane.
placed allowed, I'm starting to I hear buildings being able to be placed there, and there may,
That was,
DOT
that was
made
my
trouble
thought,
with
was
that, right?
just
It was-
banned by the current code in. the
I'm not
setbacks.
saying no, I'm just saying.
That was my creative little idea when we were discussing the plan. Hey, we're close to the form-based code area, why don't we just?
Are you talking about before those three
Because
commercially?
Yeah,
those
so-
three that like parallel the.
You'd pull in here and go behind the buildings. The buildings would look more like our form-based.
So you're talking about the three commercial lots, not the storage.
No, just the three commercial.
I would not want those in the front.
No.
No, what those is, but, sorry.
And
Right.
maybe this is a little ahead of ourselves, but are there planned intentions for those 3 lots? I was thinking maybe could it be something like what we did with that one form-based application that came through right as form-based was coming in where
Oh,
full
yeah.
send was gonna go, like if it, instead of 3 separate lots, 3 buildings, maybe it's a larger
One
building that has multiple tenants in it. And then that fits with the tenants of the form-based code where
Mhm.
the parking is in the back and it's a little bit more closer to the road. So that's just a consideration I'll throw out there. I don't know if those 3 lots have.
They don't
earmarked
have
for
it, they're
somebody.
not earmarked right now, they're just, we were able to get those with what the zoning is now. Stay current with what the zoning laws are in that
Right.
district for the community commercial.
Right.
With the areas and setbacks and things of that nature, and that's what kind of fit in there, so that's why the road is, the proposed road is where it is to keep it.
It's.
To be able to fit a building in there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
So
think
we could, it could be definitely.
we sort of set a standard with Stella's down there, and I think if that. motif could be continued, you know. Although Stella's has the parking in front and we didn't have any option at that time.
Yeah, that was existing. when
We didn't know it was a good idea to put parking back
No,
like that then.
And we couldn't though. I mean, the code didn't allow it. I mean,
No.
They had the 100-foot setback and that was the problem. But the
Yeah,
buil-
it's-
the buildings themselves and the look it gives, it's, if we could move that look forward.
Yeah, they're not earmarked for anything. We were kind of thinking the same type of things that are allowed in the community commercial. I know
So
there's
you're
the
you're
farm
not,
stand that's gonna stay there
you're
now.
not fixed on, whether it's 1 lot or 3 lots. I mean, it could be.
I don't, I'd have to talk to the,
Okay.
to the Janekos.
I
and
think
see.
they're looking for 3 lots now,
Yeah,
and my guess is, and maybe, my
Probably.
assumption is that how they want it. And I mean, from a planning perspective, it doesn't seem like a bad idea until they get a tenant, if they can come up with the tenant you're describing. They're gonna be
Multiple
back,
tenants.
they're gonna be back in here
Yeah.
saying, hey, we get rid of these lot lines.
Which we could do.
You can have a four.
The other thing on that Spine Road, those townhouses that are parallel on the west side, you're looking at the back of the homes on that Spine Road. I mean, we'll have to think about some sort of landscape buffer. Something,
but you mean back to back the homes?
yeah, the back of the homes.
Yeah, we don't, I mean,
Rather
if you look at a lot of the spots around, they don't really put a lot of screening. It's just part of it. I don't.
Yeah,
think
but
it-
I always think of what you see behind back of townhomes. You see playground equipment, the kids' bikes, and maybe for the privacy of the people who live there too. I mean, there'll probably be a small patio. So
Yeah.
rather than being looking down on a road with traffic, so
We
I'm
can
just,
look at that.
yeah,
When you mean where they kind of butt back, you know, like your outdoor area would be just, I understand what you're talking about, that one corridor almost.
because I guess
Yeah.
is your topo flat there? It's not like the townhomes. are up
It's,
on a hill.
it's got like a 5% going
Yeah.
from the south to the north going down, so it's kind of downhill, so there'll be.
Oh, okay, well then.
They're not perfectly flat, it's got a little gentle slope to it.
Good.
So we could definitely look at, you know, creating a landscape plan to give it a little more depth of flow.
Yeah, get creative on your landscaping and the parking analysis
Yep.
that I ask you to provide, but as far as, comp plan, the NRI features, looking at some of the other plans that we've done for up in that area, the ag plan. I think for the most part, this property or this use is in compliance. So I don't.
You expect any controversy from any of the surrounding properties?
Expecting some probably from the homeowners of Stablegate is my guess, but for the most part, you're not gonna really see anything off of Purdy Road is my. Kind of our overall analysis of what we see, but like I said, the land's not being used for much right now. It checks all those. It's close to 332. It's close to the throughway. It's a nice piece of property. It's not too, overly hard to develop. It's relatively flat. There's not any big wooded areas other than the swamp that needs to be protected, which we understand that, so. The path to get the road in there is being cleared because of the water line anyway, so that vegetation is being removed as we speak. And it just kind of fits that area. You go just the other side of Town Line Road and there you go, you're in Farmington and. Very similar developments are happening on 332 from Town Line Road all the way up.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like there's a pretty good vegetated buffer to the
Well,
west.
there's a couple
to the
hundred
north.
feet between where the homes are to where the road is, so.
Yeah, actually, Google Maps has that little interior road. You can probably go right down that, snip around. On Google Maps.
Yeah, you can't even see those houses on Mobile Road from 332.
I would think. I mean, I'm just sort of, I know what ideas for you guys to include,
Yeah.
and I'm sure actually we'll probably have screening. For the commercial, for the storage units, the mini storage, put that in our report, or.
Yeah, that's what we're kind of talking about, the fencing.
Yeah, between the residential and the.
Well, I was thinking, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
I was thinking between this mini storage and 332.
Oh. Okay.
Well, they're
How
probably,
about screening?
Anthony, did anybody farm that land already?
I think. Frank does some farming there for his farm stand. He's gonna continue that behind it, not as big as he was doing. I think there was some evidence of being plowed, just that one area that you saw, but I don't think that they're keeping up with it as of right now. So I think maybe Frankie was doing it for some farm stand produce. And like I said, he's gonna keep doing some stuff behind his building and try to, do that. So,
Are the sidewalks up on Town Line Road? Across the French?
they're on the north side.
I know they did
I think it stops.
they did a major reconstruction in town.
Oh, it does stop right at Stone Way.
It so
Hmm.
there's sidewalks that will be just across the street.
Yeah.
That's all.
And then that will link up to, the stuff going north. But there's nothing currently like, like. Stanley or Walnut Drive.
So Frank has a finger going out to, Chinook, not the town line behind Ace, right?
Yeah, there's gonna be some reworking of some of the property lines as we do this. He's gonna keep the little access area for now.
Okay, because that has the farm stand. On it, even though the farm
The
stand.
farm stand does directly, yes.
Mm.
All of his frontage and access is off of 332.
Does he own the Ace property?
I believe so. I think they lease
so.
days.
Like that.
Yes.
Wow.
I think it
Okay.
did, yeah.
Okay.
Is Sarah's, the Stella's property, part of this?
No, I mean, it's Stella's, it will it's
connected,
attached to
right?
the mobile road.
Connects
So
to
you-
this piece too, right?
If you look in, yeah, so a part of it will be. She's. We have the redevelopment a little bit of our properties there, so,
Which is attached,
yeah,
wait,
there'll be an overall,
yeah,
we're gonna have to move a couple of the lines to clean up, the differences, but they own, everything's under the Jack owns. There'll be a couple different property line transfers that we need to do.
yeah.
Why didn't they push the PUD all the way out to 332? That way you got your 100 acres probably close to it.
Well, we didn't wanna include like the Ace Hardware and stuff that's not kind of directly involved in it, so most of it,
Even though
we're
Frank
taking the
owns-
66 acres, there's not another. Amount, like if we were to take into account like Stella's and Ace and all that stuff, we probably have it, but. I didn't know if the town was, we're kind of. Taking, using some land that we're not necessarily kind of developing, like the Ace Hardware or Stella's, where those are kind of.
Yeah,
staying the same.
sometimes having property under PUD is a restriction too. Because I know, the one down there across from, GMC Buick deal, remember they wanted to put a, Z-Bar?
Yeah.
And it would have been approved under the old zoning, but under the PUD, it was not a permitted use. So couldn't put the Z-Bar there.
So that raises the point with Stella's, and that's why I asked. And I think the town board is prepared to consider a request for the waiver on the 100 acres. My recollection is maybe some stormwater would be going to Stella's.
Stella has a current stormwater, there was an area that we
Yeah.
had kind of flagged that might be an expansion, or we put it next to her stormwater area. Cause right there, you see in just to the west of where Stella's is, in the southeast corner. There, that blue outline is her current storage, so we either expand upon that.
That's her part. I was thinking that was part of the PUD.
No, so it's
The
this
black line.
This is, that's her piece.
Her
Yeah.
stormwater storage is
I
on
believe it's on her other property.
the PUD property. Oh.
But we can adjust that.
Said never, forget it.
We had the pod originally when they were kind of messing with this area, so we kind of shifted it, so we could. This area here was taken by that pond, and then the way that this all kind of rolls. It's gonna take it north.
Okay, I think you gave Anthony enough to chew on to take back to his client. I do want to have Mark and Scott's input on this, so we'll continue our discussions. At our May, whatever, first meeting in May. Because we certainly can't do it in 2 weeks. pretty busy. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yep.
Ma'am, are you here for something specific? Not for this, okay. Anybody else in the audience out of TV land? Have any concerns on this one? Just listen in? Okay, good. Glad to have you. All right, thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Good job.
Let's move on to our minutes from our last meeting, the 26th of March. Any further additions, corrections that we'd like to put on the record at this point? If not, take a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve the record, make the minutes.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, got a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, yeah, I'm just thinking, Tim, were you here? Were you here? Okay.
So long as he's
You can vote.
familiar with it, he can vote.
Familiar, as long as you're ready.
It's just.
Okay, the releases. Okay, we have a referral from the town board regarding the short-term rental.
Oh, yeah.
Revision of the ordinance. I am going to yield to Kristen. Since she is the short-term rental expert as to what transpired. As you recall, we had an ordinance regulating short-term rentals. That was back 22. Yeah. Whatever it was. The original, the old, the one we're under right
Couple
now.
years.
Anyway, we had an ordinance regulation. It put a lot of emphasis on the planning board because we became the judge and jury for any appeals on most anything. And so it was determined by the county and staff that it really isn't a zoning issue, it's a town code issue. Unrelated to zoning, related, but not as strongly related as it was with the original ordinance. So it was changed. And I guess you need Sarah's. You don't have to go through all those.
No,
I mean,
it's
just things that affect us and really it takes out a lot of responsibility, and the only responsibility.
It does. So Sarah came up with a really nice kind of highlight.
Summary. of the-
Summary, yeah. So, changes compared with the current law. Adding a purpose statement. Previous versions of the law lacked this. Removing the definition section, just because town code already defines a lot of the terms. Removing short-term rentals from chapter 220. And putting it into chapter 201. Clarifying the application requirements in one section, currently. Big one is removing the maximum occupancy of 2 people per bedroom, so it's capped. And relying on state code to dictate how many people can be in each bedroom. So that's based on square footage. Which would appeal to a lot of the residents that have bigger bedrooms. Can use a large bedroom as like a bunk room. So some people have like a 400 square foot bedroom. Here's 2 houses. Adding a local contact. Property management company, somebody that's here to address issues when they arise. We need to get in touch with them. Adding a requirement that a rental that has an occupancy of 16 or greater, or maybe
That may
12 or
change.
greater.
12 or greater, right?
I think it's.
Well, they were
maybe
talking about
changed
12
to
today
12.
with the ordinance committee.
That they have to get a special use permit from the planning board. So anybody that would have an occupancy of that number or higher would then have to come here.
Do we know how many there are currently floating around
That would,
that would meet
Out of
that
this-
That,
out of
marker?
the 64 that are permitted under the current law, I think it would be about 33.
Oh, wow.
Um,
but that's a one-time event.
It's a one-time event and that's just going off of the bedroom size. There could be other restrictions that would limit the occupancy.
Okay,
State code has dimensional requirements for the number of occupants that can be in a house based on the size of the living room and the dining room. If there's restrictions in the code about parking spaces, that could restrict, would use the occupancy, so. So that figure, the 33 is just based on bedroom
Okay.
size, doesn't take into account other factors. Adding a note that no events are allowed. Adding a daytime guest allowance. So that people could basically like double their allowed maximum occupancy during daytime hours.
So if 33, I mean, whatever, no. Say you have 12, now you have 24, is that not an event?
Well, so,
It's very close to becoming one.
yes. But if you have 4, could you have another 4 to 6 people come over to enjoy the lake for the day or have
Sure.
dinner?
Yeah,
So. That's why the special use permit comes into effect, maybe. Planning board says, and by the way, your daytime, you can only have. 1/3 of the number of guests.
I could see it becoming an event.
Yeah, but that point is really great that, if the people have an occupancy that high, where the doubling that would become an event, then. This is limit it further.
I could think,
Also, if it becomes an event. Then they're in violation, whether they have the right number, but you make a good point. Not something necessarily.
There are some.
Chit chat with Sarah and Mike tomorrow about that, because I think that's. Good point.
Let's see, updating safety requirements to be in compliance with state code. Talking about changing the short-term rental permit term from 3 years back to 1 year. It's gonna reduce the upfront cost. The initial thought was that it's a lot of work to do the review, which it is initially. But after that initial review, if they're coming back in 1 year for a renewal, it's not quite so much work. They're basically doing the same thing, signing off the other pieces. Requiring parking spaces to be on hard durable surfaces so that people aren't parking on the grass. Gonna add a note that short-term rental permits are non-transferable. Adding a subsection about penalties for violations of the new chapter. The last one is adding a note that existing valid permits in effect at the time of adoption of the new law will remain valid until their expiration date. So it allows current permit holders to continue with their existing permit operating a business. And then they'd have to apply for a new permit if they wish. After it expires.
Alternatively. If you have a house that could fit. 12. But your permit, but it's only a 4-bedroom house, so your existing permit only allows 8. You can come in the day after this law is passed and apply for the permit. Which may be a lot of those 33 are probably gonna wind up doing.
So this is still a work in progress. In fact, it was a discussion detail this morning at the ordinance committee meeting. There were some changes suggested to what Kristen just went over as recent as this morning. One was whether we'd be 16 or 12 occupants that goes for SUP. Making sure that we ensure that the capacity of the sewer system, though it addresses that issue, but maybe stress a little more that it can handle whatever occupant load is, to use an expression. Put on
the bedrooms, it's septic is based on bedrooms, right?
right.
right,
Yep.
Not how many people stay in a bedroom. But how many bedrooms you have.
Yeah, and I don't know this for certain, I believe that if you've got, 600 square feet bedrooms, they say, okay, great, you're in compliance with the code for 4-bedroom house, but you're gonna need more capacity. Believe this is the watershed. Or
Yeah.
code enforcement.
And the
does that. But unless you're wrong,
It's the size of the house and the number of bedrooms.
but so you
That
make a good
dictates
point.
the size of the.
If you've got a house that'll fit 16 under this code. But as a 4-bedroom house that has, 400 square foot bedrooms. Unless you upgraded your septic, you're probably not gonna be allowed to have that.
Right, you'd be limited based on your current capacity of your septic
Yeah.
system. That would be the number of people able to occupy.
Yeah.
That's almost like the number that should be determined.
Then that should
Well,
be, that should be a known number per house right now. That number should be
Yeah.
an exact number right now, we know right now.
It's usually.
Yeah, we do.
Not exceed that number.
It's in their phone.
It's whatever, if you built a 4-bedroom house, but put in a commercial grade. High capacity septic system, well, then you get,
Or if you're connected to sewer, right?
or if you're connected to sewer.
I'm just saying, through the review process on the short-term rentals,
Oh,
we
absolutely.
should know what the capacity is for that.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's part of the
research.
application.
Not
That's
for
part of the
Right,
application.
And the other thing,
By
does
the
it function?
certification.
So you have to make sure that it's had a recent inspection.
Right, they would have to
Sure.
provide certifications for it, yeah.
So. I see some shaking of heads on the. Would you ladies like to, gentlemen like to speak at all? On this issue?
Sure, yeah, just a couple of questions and or comments. Regarding the hard surface for the parking, is there gonna be some consideration with the water runoff? Because if it rains and it now soaks into the ground, and if they make 5-car allotment and it's, depending on the slope and now the water is just running down, how do they address that? And then the existing permits, how long are they currently, what are the current terms typically? Are they a 3-year permit, a 5-year permit, a 20-year permit?
The 3-year.
Current.
Okay, so most of them, the longest anybody could have probably if they, is a portion of that 3 years because they've already had it for some time. So that's, yeah, that was the question. That's perfectly okay. So yeah, I would say Terry and I, we're 4789 Westlake Road. Agree with just about everything on there. The only question would just be the water runoff because we have an issue with that now with neighbors. And if they were to change it from grass to blacktop, it might increase the water runoff.
Any increase in impervious surface requires analysis of runoff. And our code also requires that you're not allowed to run off onto your neighbor's property with new development.
Okay, perfect. No, it sounds really good. And then, yes, in the subsection about penalties, yeah, I would strongly encourage that so that you can keep people in check.
Right.
And outside that, it sounds all very positive.
Well, thank you for your input. Okay, so as far as the board.
Thank you.
I think it takes a little bit of responsibility off us in one regard in terms of the appeals procedures that we were under the current regulations, but certainly, as we may see more special use permit applications for whether it be 16 or 12 occupants.
Can I suggest that you put that in your response to the town board?
I wasn't gonna write anything special.
Chris, can you write up a little memo for Chuck to sign to the? No, even if just that
Yeah.
one sentence. It just dawned on me that. We have 33 special use permit applications in
Yeah.
a matter of maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
Sarah brought that up today. She said.
Okay, never, yeah, Sarah.
Well, no, she mentioned that, especially if you drop from 16 to 12. It's going
It's gonna
to
increase.
increase the
Yeah.
load.
Well, it doesn't increase the load so much as make it. It's not feasible. People can't, when people will wait for, quite frankly, about a year before you can. Add 2 special use permits per meeting. It increases your load, but you also just can't do it. You can't, people will lose these things generate
It's
about
gonna delay their getting the permits.
$100,000 a year in revenue. You gotta wait 9 months before you can even operate. That's gonna,
I hate to say it, but would we have to have a special session? Just for that,
Just for all of this special use permits.
just for that?
And somebody can get it.
well, and so you're required to grant, or people are required to obtain site plan. Approval as part of. Any special use permit. There's no special use permit provision.
Yeah, just,
There's
you
no
don't have
section
anything right now.
220-62.5 short-term rental. So you just have the general things in 220-35. Is there adequate access? Is there impact to neighbors? Is there,
Mm-hmm.
you just go through that.
Those classes.
I mean, you're also not talking about new construction for the most part. You're saying, okay, do you have enough parking? If you're not, I mean, you're not redesigning these things for people like you sometimes do.
In reality, that should already be done before it would come to us.
Right.
All that stuff should be
Maybe,
done, all those checks
yeah,
should be done.
If there is improvements being made, that would get vetted out through the.
Right.
period.
that maybe this town farms it out to MRB group, one of your staff, and spend a week going through them. Do it.
Sure, sign them up. Sure.
Personally, you pay your money.
Yeah.
Take a chance.
No, I think that town staff has. Is already close to or at capacity, you can't add 33 special use permit applications. Without. Burning people out or not getting it done.
I think it's one of those you have to wait and see what happens, right? It's,
Yeah,
you make accommodations based on the need of the time.
The means.
and I'm just trying to sort of play it out, is it possible?
Wouldn't it sort of fall under a major home occupation? I was thinking, you were saying about parameters or what you base your decision on, obviously based on the code and looking at that, but what you're doing is maybe not granting relief, but you're, I guess, making sure that the code provisions are applied.
Well, and so generally, I like a nice special use permit code. That says, okay, if you're a gas station, you need to, the planning board needs to check these things. In this case, a special use permit is more just a convenient mechanism. To get it through the review process. Of staff, of MRB, of the highway superintendent, of the county. Of the sewer, it's just a review process mechanism, really.
Non-impervious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we, if it came to us as an SUP, I think then the impervious curb, are you paving over to get the parking that you need to.
And then
take your 18 occupants.
But ideally staff and MRB would have caught that, circled it on the plan, but. One of the sections in 220-35 deals with nuisance or bothering neighbors. So that's sort of the subjective end that you're gonna have a 16 guests every week.
Higher the risk.
This board can say, well, you're located on 1,000 acres at the, northwest side of town and nobody's gonna even notice, or, yeah, you're on top of your next door neighbors and you also get a public hearing with a special use permit. And while it is subjective, these people have been operating. If they've been causing a nuisance, causing a problem, their neighbors are gonna show up with pitchforks and say, they throw loud parties every night of the week, every night of the summer. And it's killing me and I don't enjoy the lake, and then that gives you the opportunity to.
Yeah, that came up today, that the town board members who were there, they were concerned about whether the neighbors being notified. If there's a SUP application in and part of our normal process of notifying neighbors, then they'll certainly have the opportunity to testify or. So.
Well, and for the most part. The ones that are problems, not that this is the solution, the ones that are problem, the neighbors already know that what they're doing there. And are gonna know that they're going to need this special use permit because we've got an informed. Residency, especially along the way. And the town has pretty great procedures to get those notices.
Under the current regulations, everything's a special use permit. We delegated the zoning officer
Yeah.
to be the one to set it unless he has an issue and then it comes to us. That's the way it was set up originally and it was kind of awkward. This will work out better.
This will work out great. This is the result of a lot of effort on the part of your town staff, your ordinance committee, your town attorney. I'm still convinced that a year from now, we're gonna say, oh geez, why didn't we think of that?
Oh, yeah, it'll be a
And
work in progress.
I think this in particular should be a work in progress. We can't spend much more time trying to get it perfect. We gotta get
Yeah,
it.
you can't think of
And then
every,
sort of see.
that's what we spent this morning talking an hour and a half was what if, trying to design for the worst case scenario. You gotta put something out there.
And
see if it works.
exactly, I hate legislating for the worst case scenario. And worst case scenario, we don't know what it is. We'll know.
Whatever you think it is, it's
We'll
gonna
know,
be worse.
we'll know a few minutes after it happens.
Can I ask a what if? Or a,
Just kidding.
please,
Yes, go ahead.
everybody, please, and maybe it's not a what if, it's a, was this previously considered? So. Was there any consideration for limiting the number of special use permits for short-term rentals? And, for the town, thinking about the, I guess, the climate of housing these days and, people snatching up houses that have the means to do so and they just rent it out to make a lot of money. And then all these other people are houseless and not having sort, but so I recently went to Lake Tahoe to go ski and they do I haven't looked this up, but they limit the number of special use permits for Airbnbs in a particular location. So was that considered? And is there a short and sweet answer you guys can give me to?
Some communities do that, a lot of them do. I guess it was considered, but not at this point.
I think it was considered prior to my involvement in this. If I had been there when it was considered, I would say that's probably pretty illegal in New York State. It's probably a lot of places are getting away with it. You might be able to get away with it. I still don't think you would, but the argument, the justification that you got a housing crisis. Could soften the illegality of it, except that. It wouldn't, that argument doesn't fly. In this situation, lake houses and ski chalets. Probably weren't gonna provide housing for the houseless to begin with. The town has a housing issue.
Right,
And yes, there are some that aren't lake houses and ski
I
chalets,
was gonna
but
ask what the percentage of, like, are they all lake houses that are, they're Airbnbs? Most, yeah,
but I've seen a couple, the ones like
there's
with
some
like
on,
views and farms and stuff.
yeah, the big
but
views, yeah,
that out of the 64,
probably 50 are lake houses.
10 doesn't solve your housing crisis when there are other things that can and should and are being done.
And are more within the
Effective.
boundaries of
It's a good
operating.
question. I also still just think it's illegal to limit people from a use that is legal and say,
But-
like you could say, look, we've got 5 factories in town And your factor, your number 6 factor, we're gonna prohibit you because we just don't have the capacity on the roads for all your trucks, we don't have the fire capacity, we don't have the you know, there's too much smog, this is the maximum level of smog our town can take. But short-term rentals aren't something that the town can prohibit under New York State as it currently stands. You can't just say you can't do this. Because renting your house for any amount of period, it still falls under the basket of single-family residential use. Could rent my house to you for a week, a year, or 10 years. It's still under New York State law, a single-family residential use.
Is the state, I was on a planning federation training thing. And at the end, they had said that the state is considering the short-term rentals as a business. So instead of saying like, I'm purchasing a second home and this is my vacation home and I'm just gonna go here myself, but then
Which
Turn
part
it-
of the state, is that state courts? Can
I don't know.
did they have a PowerPoint or something?
Yeah.
Can I see it?
Yeah.
Do you have it? Can you
I
send it to me?
can, if I don't have PowerPoint, I'm sure I can get it. So I can get it for you.
Well,
Yeah.
'cause
Or the talking point, right? The whatever the,
I consider, but personally, I consider them a business. They sure seem like a business. Everything about them is a business.
right,
That's why you're allowed to regulate them the way you are regulating them, the way
Right.
you're proposing to, because they're not a hotel, but they're
Right.
an awful lot like a hotel.
right,
So, you know, if I rent you my house, the town doesn't really have an interest. If you're living there
Right.
on a 2-year lease, in making sure I put fire extinguishers. and
right,
It's just your house.
Yeah.
But these are people coming in. The town does have an interest in ensuring that there's access, safety,
mhm,
you know, that your residents aren't, like, they're guests, we gotta make sure that they can survive and don't harm the community. It's possible New York State law has changed since I last looked. It's possible they're talking about New York City. It's possible that that's a state agency who clearly saw it. I have not found a single determinative case in New York State. There's a zoning case that says it's an awful lot like a hotel.
right,
And that's an awful lot like a business, but they don't say it shall be the law that these are
Mhm.
businesses, not single family
Mhm.
residential. Unless it changed since I last looked, so.
How's it viewed in the tax code?
Speak. Cause you don't think they're depreciating that? Sorry,
okay.
I have a whole spiel about
I-
short-term rentals.
Terry,
will see
you
what I
had
can
something you wanna add?
find.
Yes, yeah, just curious. For the residential short-term rental people, you know, the homeowners doing their Airbnbs via, what type of event triggers a special use permit? What, you know, can you just give an example of what would be, you know, somebody's renting their house for a weekend or a week and, you know, 12 different people for 12 different weeks? I know that's a short-term rental. What is a special use permit type of event or activity?
The act of short-term rental, in this case, if you have over 16, a maximum occupancy of 16. They would, regardless, any rental for any amount of time. Any time, number of times requires a regular permit, not a special permit. So that
Right,
may,
talking about special use permits, I just don't know what type of activities.
He's
trigger
thinking
that.
events, like weddings.
yeah,
Stuff.
Okay,
so it's the same activity, it's just if you have a maximum occupancy over 16 right now. But all short-term rentals, whether it's any activities of a short-term rental require a permit from the town.
right.
It's different than a special use permit, but
If someone does not have a permit and they rent their house, is there a fine? Is it a one-time fine or is it a How many, what's the procedure?
It's, so the procedure in the town of Canandaigua.
There's rental and there's short term.
Yeah, so if you're talking about short-term rental, less than 30 days. There are fines that can be assessed by the Canandaigua Town Court or the New York State Supreme Court. The goal of the town of Canandaigua is to bring violators into compliance, so we would serve a notice of violation. And an order to remedy saying, get your permit within 30 days, or else we're gonna start charging you fines. So that's what would happen.
Don't wanna get into that. Okay, all right, Harry's left the room. I guess that.
I'm done talking
Oh,
about short-term rentals too.
Letting the
Oh,
dog.
I think we can have your,
Actually,
Amanda has one more question.
No, I was
Oh.
just gonna let Mr. Nadler know that I forwarded that presentation on to, yes, of course.
I will let this board know as a conclusion to that question. A month and a half ago. Town staff issued 34 violations for people operating short-term rentals without a permit. Those will actually go to court this week. Out of the original 34, there are only 4 that have not either completed or at least commenced the path to compliance. So originally there were 34, and we brought all those into the path, onto the path to compliance. Not we, excuse me, not we. Kristen, Sarah, Mike at in the development code enforcement office status. So that's an impressive statistic, I think. That's a good thing.
And we have a new tracking consultants, right?
Wait, you hired them? Oh.
It's not up and running, but yeah.
We approved it, the town board
Yeah.
approved it.
Yeah, you got rid of the old one and got the new one.
Remember getting rid of the old
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, they're working on entering all the data.
Thank you very much. You've answered all our questions and we're gonna exit and let you continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you, have a great night.
We're about done. Thanks for joining us.
Bye now.
That being said, we are done.
Is it me? Is it my turn? Okay. Sure, everyone last call.
Oh.
Okay. 7:43 adjourned.
Don't ask Chris for another chance.
Motion.
I mean, I can keep talking about short-term rentals.
All in favor, aye.
Hi.
Sorry, I wasn't ready.
No, first time